My grandma got caught watching a porno. A couple years ago, my grandparents came over for my grandpa's birthday. We're having a family dinner, celebrating, then we're eating cake, playing cards, the typical family reunion. At one point during this gathering, my mom jokingly makes a turkey comment. None of us grandchildren or our friends who are sitting there know what the comment means. And my grandma just starts shaking her head. Some jokes are tossed out about my grandpa getting his bones jumped, which was just, and don't get me wrong. I think anyone who has a family with a kind of sick, twisted sense of humor, it's really funny, but there's still times you're like, oh, I just don't need to imagine that. So it gets to the point where we're like, what the hell is being talked about? My uncle, when he was in college, this is back in the 80s or 90s, my uncle would come home because he lived close to where my grandparents' house was at the time. He would record pornos on VHS, go back to school, and sell them at school for money. Great side hustle. Love the ingenuity. I never heard of that because that just isn't our era, right? So, long story short, my uncle forgets to delete the recorded porn that he has on the TV. And apparently, my grandma is flipping through the stations and finds a pre-recorded porno with some chick playing with her boobs in a kitchen with turkey, and she was saying turkey, turkey, and bouncing her boobs around. While she's telling this story, there are so many jokes from my mom and grandpa about my grandma just apparently wanting to have sex all the time while she's closetly watching this porno. And I know everyone's like, oh man, TMI, TMI. Yes, 100%. But again, that's just our family. No filter, messed up comments. And they are funny. They're funny every time. So, and it's 10 times funny if you know my grandma, and I think most grandmas are like this because of the era they're from. She doesn't want to talk about sex publicly to anybody. So now that this gets brought up, she feels the need to explain herself, but she's just explaining way too much about the actual porno. So while she's telling us, my mom, dad, and grandpa are just making sidebar jokes the entire time. So I start recording the confession.
So I turn it on.
I turn what it is so she's watching it.
No, I am not.
Attacking
I
you.
turned it on, and I thought it was embarrassing. This fat woman comes out, and there's these query guys all sitting around the table. And
Did I see this?
no, you never saw it. I had that turned off. I called before you ever saw it. But
You just reenacted
I
it.
called to turn it off.
You
Take
can't
it
turn the
off.
satellite off.
Yes, you can. I
No,
called
you
them.
didn't.
Yes,
No,
I
you
did.
didn't.
I said I
We don't have a satellite company.
I didn't
What's the
order
dish?
that.
We
I
have-
didn't order
Finish
that.
the video. Tell us
How's that
about
on there? Let me tell you.
I
So
saw
this
that shit.
fat bitch
Stop.
comes around and she's serving them at the table. What she's
'Cause you
she's
reenacted
busting,
it.
but they're talking about Thanksgiving and turkeys, and all of a sudden she goes turkey, 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 like and bouncing her boob. But and I thought, what is this, a new soap opera? What is that?
Wait.
And them
Was
guys,
that
no,
Thanksgiving
it
in
was
74?
derogatory. It was derogatory to that woman.
And it gets even deeper because years later, after the porno thing happens, they're out with one of my mom and dad's friends after a volleyball game. They invite my grandparents to have some drinks with them at this bar. That story comes up. My grandma is telling the turkey porno to this guy who's a friend of my mom and dad's, and he's like, oh, I've definitely seen that. I know exactly what video you're talking about. And it was so funny because to this day, my grandma will, when this family friend comes to visit my parents, my grandma will give him the ass out hug, doesn't want to touch him because she thinks he's got a porn problem. So there was just so many funny tie-ins to my grandma and her brief porno confession about this turkey stuff. And my favorite part of the whole thing was my grandma is a huge conspiracy theorist when it comes to cell phones. She'll throw a phone out of a room and shut the door if she's having a conversation that she doesn't want the government to hear. And honestly, she's probably right? In today's society, we have no privacy. I think we all just look at it a little different. For me, I'm I have nothing to hide. And if the government ever comes to my home, someone's getting their head blown off. I ain't doing that shit. You know what I mean? So everybody has a different way of handling, the lack of privacy we have in today's society. But that's not my grandma. My grandma doesn't know I'm recording her, so I turn to her with my phone. I put it right in her face so she knows that I'm recording, and I go.
So the minute he said turkey,
She not.
turkey,
I know.
I knew that what he saw.
She already
I
knows.
said,
Was porn.
I told
Was a
her
porno.
I saw that.
No, you watch porn?
And now I just have you on video
I called Winter off.
saying
You have
Scary
one
now.
turn.
pornography.
Shut up.
And I just caught you on camera talking about pornography. And she's like, no, like trying to slap the phone away from me when she realized I was videotaping her. It's just so funny. But that was definitely one of my favorite stories. And it's so funny, you know, every family dynamic is different, but my uncles are definitely mama's babies, and especially the youngest. And I see it in my own family, right? Like my little brother is my mama's baby to a T. She'll, whether she means to or not, she'll defend him to the, you know, to the death. And that's good, right? Like I'm not saying it's a negative. It's just, it's one of the family dynamic things. Like I feel like in almost every household, whoever the youngest sibling is, that typically is mama's baby, especially if it's a boy. So it was just really funny to hear my uncle's side hustle in college was recording pornos and selling them at school, especially now because he's very Catholic, very like proper guy, and and he, you know, very judgmental in the same breath of certain things. So it was just really funny to hear that. And my grandma always talk about what a great guy is. And I'm not, again, not that he's not a great guy, and that's a great side hustle, right? To be running pornos from school when you only live 20 minutes from home. Like I get the hustle, but it was just really funny to hear that side of the story in addition to my grandma watching the porn. So just one of my favorite stories. It was so funny in the moment. And so yeah, you kind of got a story and a story with that one. But that's today's episode. Hope everybody's well, and we'll be back with more soon. Talks to Tom.
Taking shots by the lake till I can't even breathe no more, see no more. I was riding around town thinking to myself, is it gonna get easier? I'll be up and away up the street and big, but I can't even breathe no more. What's it to me? What can I see? Taking shots by